Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. Sartre is using these philosophical terms, essence and existence. And you've encountered the term essence before in other contexts, but not necessarily in the way that he's doing. And in existence, you probably haven't used that term too much. You probably haven't used it as a noun. You said something exists, right? Let's start with existence instead of starting with essence. What is your existence? It's the you that's here. The individual that's in front of us. Now, we can look around the room and see each other, and there's an existing person right there, here's another existing person, here's another one, there's another one, and we have all these different characteristics that make us us. And you could look at it as any slice of time and say, okay, I'm 6'3", there's a couple other guys in here who I think are about that tall, and then almost everybody in the room is shorter than that, right? That height, that's part of your existence. Not a particularly important part. I have dark hair, there's red hair, blondish hair, other dark hair. Somebody could have no hair, I have hair on my face. Not everybody else does. That's part of my existence. That could change, right? I could shave tomorrow and get rid of it. Get rid of this hair. The clothes that you wear, that's part of your existence. The habits, the ways in which you approach things, those make you you as well, don't they? Your memories make you you. That's part of your existence. Your history, the fabric of relationships that you're stuck with, for better or for worse. Your loves, your hates, all of that is part of what makes you the being that you are. That's part of your existence, and existence is what's actually there. Now, Sartre is an atheist, so he believes at a certain point in time your existence will come to an end. He doesn't believe in an afterlife. Someday you're going to die, and that's it. So your existence began, and it will end, right? And everybody else's. We're overlapping right now. What about essence? When we use the term essence, when do we talk about essence? Herbal essences, shampoo. Do you think that is there any connection between that and what we're talking about here? What's the essence of an herb? Yeah.
I was going to
Go ahead.
I was just going to say essence is like what makes it what you are.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, again, is there an essence to an herb? Why do we talk about essential oils? Well, they smell like the thing. So if it's lavender, it smells very lavendery. It smells like what it ought to be. And an individual piece of lavender may not actually smell like lavender. There's little small differences. Maybe it's gone stale. Maybe a bug got into it and made it smell bad. But the essence is to smell good in a certain way. Are there essences to other things? Well, let's think about this, right? A wallet. Sartre uses the example of a knife. And a knife, it's got not only a certain rationale or set of characteristics, it's got a purpose. This does too, doesn't it? You all recognize this as an object, and what kind of object it is. You grasp, somebody like Aristotle would say, you grasp its essence, what it is. What's this for? Holding things, yeah. Can I use it for other things? Like, if it's raining, I could keep the rain off my head a little bit. Yeah, but that's not the purpose. And, to use Sartre's example of a knife, You can use a knife for other things, but you might hurt yourself that way. Like if you try to clean your ear with a knife, that's not a good idea. Why? Because the purpose of a knife is to cut things. And if it's a good knife, it's good at that. And if you mess around with your ear with a knife, you're probably going to cut your ear, because that's what it's for. There's a lot of other things you probably shouldn't do with knives too, right? You could think of. Well, that's all part of what makes the thing the thing. And it's easy to think about knives and water bottles or boots or objects like that. What about human beings? What is it that makes us us? Well, think about our bodies first. Go ahead.
You could say like all of our experiences and
Well, that makes you you. That's part of your existence.
Isn't your existence like your makeup? Like your
That's part of it, yeah. Your existence is complex. But I don't have your experiences. You don't have mine. I mean,
wouldn't that be my essence? Like, isn't each person's
well, we're going to get to that. That's good. You're sort of jumping ahead to where Sartre is going. But the ordinary view is that you and I have something in common that we share beyond our individual existences. And think about it. You're a woman. I'm a man, so already gender is different. I'm twice your age, I'm guessing, right? You're probably 20, 21. Probably other than speaking English, growing up in America, and having long hair, we don't actually have that much in common. But we do have some things in common. If you think about our bodies, how many eyes should we have? 3? 2, yeah. If you have 3, there's something went wrong somewhere, right? And if you only have 1 eye, then we say you're... Oh, you're a cyclops, yeah. If you only have 1 eye, usually we say you're missing an eye, right? Why? Because we're referring to the way things ought to be. We say there's something wrong here, there's something that went amiss. You have a certain basic form. And if you want to just talk about it in bodily terms, we could think about our genetic code. Our genetic codes are extremely similar. All of us together, we share 98% of our DNA in common with chimpanzees. So you go to the zoo, that chimpanzee there is 98% the same thing as you, down to that genetic stuff. That 2% makes a big difference, right? And that 2% determines a lot of the other things that make us vary from each other. That's all part of what makes you you, but it's also something that we're supposed to share across the species. What if we get to things that aren't just bodily, though? Is there something that we all have in common in other ways? Some of the other people we're going to study this semester are going to say, yeah, there's rationality, for example. Human beings are the rational animal. Aristotle will define it. I kind of like other things that are distinctive to us too, like laughing and crying. Animals make noises, but they don't actually laugh and have a sense of humor the way that we do. Maybe that's distinctively human. Religion. We don't see cats setting up shrines to some cat god. That's something distinctively human. Maybe that's of our essence. And so there's an older idea about this sort of stuff that says, yeah, we do have an essence. And Sartre is going to attack 2 different ways of looking at this. One is he thinks coming from a religious view, and whether or not he got religion right, that's kind of debatable. He's kind of a reductionist about it. But in his view of it, here's the way religious people see things. You have an essence. Why do you have an essence? Because God created things that way. God, made each animal different than the others. So lions have their own essence, and cockroaches have their own essence, and we have an essence too. And when God, creates individual human beings, it's sort of like making a knife. God has an idea of the knife in mind beforehand, then he makes it come into being. And so if that's the case, then how can you tell if you're a good human being or not? Well, whether you're realizing that essence. If it's part of our essence to, say, live in harmony with each other, like Thomas Aquinas would say, thinks that that's something reason can show us that we have a natural instinct for. And you don't live in harmony with people. Instead, you go around beating everybody up and kicking them and stealing from them. Well, then you're not a very good human being in your existence. Now, if you go around and you do the opposite, take care of the people who got mugged, I guess you're a good human being then. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, with the whole essence thing though, like what you're just going to with the whole purpose.
Yeah.
If we're talking about anything like everything's created for a sole purpose, and then all things are you saying human beings, we all share an essence or whatever, if human beings all share an essence, we all serve the same purpose.
Yeah, that's the view.
So,
that's the view that Sartre is setting up so he can knock down.
But that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Even if we all serve the same purpose, there's not really there can't be any distinctions between. You know what I mean? So can it be each individual, although they might be a human, each individual has their own essence because everyone serves a different purpose.
Well, that could be the way your existence aligns with your essence. Like, for instance, you and I are both men. I imagine somewhere down the line, you hope to get married and have children or something like that, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
I have children, and one of the things that, say, Thomas Aquinas, who we're going to look at the very end of the semester, says that not only is procreation part of the natural instincts that we have, there's also an inclination to raise our young, to take care of them, to nurture them. Am I going to do that in exactly the same way as you are? No, there will be things that have to do with my existence that are, play out differently than things in your existence.
Yeah, but you might have a different purpose to raise your kids, right?
Well, it would be still the same general purpose. It would have something to do with our essence,
Sure.
But it would play itself out differently in the actual circumstances. Well, let me go on from there. So let's say we take God out of the picture, and we say, well, we're going to be atheists, and we still want there to be something like an essence of human beings, human nature, so that we can say that there's good and bad, right and wrong, there's a way we ought to live, a way we ought to behave. People talk about this when they say, well, you can take God out of the picture and morality doesn't disappear, right? That's part of the drive behind the New Atheist movement. Sartre says, well, that's basically just the same thing. You're just substituting nature in for God. You're saying there's something that creates an essence of human beings, and the existence of a human being comes out of that, and so you took God out of the picture and substituted natural law or evolution or whatever you like. You're really having the same picture. And he thinks that both pictures are wrong. Instead, he says, first you exist. You come out of nothing, a void of meaning. And then, now you inhabit a world in which people talk about essences and about the nature of human beings and all that sort of stuff. But really, whatever you're going to be, you're going to decide. You're going to make yourself. So you're going to make whatever essence you actually have. So this is where we get to maybe your essence is different than my essence in the Sartrean view. The essence of human being for me clearly has something to do with living the life of the mind and also with some things that are not so good. Like clearly, just by looking at me, you can tell that exercise is not a high priority for me. It was at one time, but then other things, pleasure of enjoying rich food and laying around turned out to be more important for me. Right? Still committed to the life of the mind. The way your essence is going to play out could be very different. I can tell by looking at you that exercise is a priority for you, at least, right? And it should stay that way too, by the way. I regret having changed my priorities. And you can think about this with that question about which goods are motivating you. That's going to determine what you make of yourself. Yeah.
Well, then doesn't it just come back down to you are what you do? So if you wanted to change your essence and say stop
Yes.
moving around. You can change your essence and change who you are, right?
Yeah, it's easier to talk about it than to do it.
But
You're right, yes.
Yeah, it goes back
We
to
have
the
the
potential
potential
to do that.
Yeah, and that's something we're going to talk about in more detail later in the semester, like how do we change habits and how do we sort of change the trajectory of our values and the ordering of goods. Sartre thinks, go ahead.
Isn't your essence always changing then? If like, or maybe you're just masking.
Well-
like, let's say you didn't want to work out, and then you still didn't want to work out, but you know you have to work out. So maybe
Yeah.
you're just like in the mentality of someone that doesn't want to work out. So then you're not.
Well, if I made myself work out, even though, let's say I made myself consistently work out, even though I don't like working out. And quite frankly, the only reason why I used to work out is because I used to like working out. And then when that changed, I no longer did it. So I consistently make myself do that. That would be a different essence. It would be okay that I don't like it. I would be saying something like, one ought to do things that one doesn't like because it is better for oneself than laying around and watching TV and eating what you like, that would be a different essence. Trying out a bunch of different things and never actually sticking to them, that would be a different kind of essence, wouldn't it? So, does this make more sense to you now about what he's talking about when he's talking about you make your own essence? You're deciding what human beings ought to be like then. Yeah.
Then is your personality part of your essence? Like just how you act?
Yeah, I suppose. Insofar as it's not just a like let's say there's certain aspects of personality that maybe you don't have much control over. Take people who are depressed and need medication because they have a chemical imbalance. I don't think Sartre would say that they're responsible for their depression because it's something organic. How they deal with it, what they make of it, he would say they're responsible for. Now, if you don't have something like that, and you have a couple setbacks, and you allow that to make you gloomy and moody all the time, then Sartre would say that is your choice, that you've made yourself into that kind of person. And he distinguishes two different kinds of choice too, I'd like to point out. So there's like the fundamental choice deep within your being, and then there's later on choices. He's not saying that every time you go to the cafeteria and decide, am I going to have pizza today, or noodles, or a salad, that you're actually like determining your essence in any full sense. But now think about it if you say to yourself, man, I need to lose weight. I better start eating more salads. I'm going to stick to this. That would be determining your essence. Is this more clear now? I hope. There may be some things that are still.
So it's like when something has a purpose, it's affecting your essence, kind of.
Well, Sartre thinks that you are choosing what the purpose of your life is.